We are 2 weeks from the NFL draft. That's pretty exciting.
2 weeks from today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a fun few days.
It certainly is. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro. Reuben, do you still get amazed that the draft is like as big a deal as it is?
Yeah, and I probably told the story about the first draft I covered. We were in a basement room at the vet. There was maybe 20 people there. We had a giant board where an employee of the Eagles would write the picks on in Sharpie on a giant piece of paper, and just one through wasn't 32 teams back then. I don't know, 20, 28, 29 teams. And there was no coverage. There's no live coverage of it. So you would have there was no internet yet. So you'd have a stack of draft guides. You'd have your Kuiper, you'd have your Joel Bushbaum Pro Football Weekly guide, you'd have your R Lads guide, and maybe a couple others. You'd have like five guys there. I remember that first year in '88. It was the year the Eagles took Keith Jackson in the first round. Peter King shows up, and he's got a printer, a fax machine, and like a box of printer paper. And he sets up, and just things have certainly changed. And there weren't that many people covering it back then. It wasn't a huge deal, and they did all the picks in one day. It was 12 rounds. So it was sure different. There was no live TV coverage, and eventually they I think ESPN showed the first round. Um, but yeah, it's been crazy to see how it's grown.
It's a lot of fun though, and in a way, I think there are some people who enjoy the offseason more than the season because you have free agency, you have the draft, and it is exciting. It's exciting to figure out like which players are going to join your favorite team, and you end up like if you follow college football, and even if you don't, like you have enough time here to kind of have a crash course and learn some of these players, and you end up with favorites, and then I think it is special because you get to follow these guys through their professional careers.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 days that really shape the future of your franchise. And it's like we can talk to Howie all we want, but the draft is when you really find out what they think, and what their plan is. Like, they can say this and that. And this year's kind of different because we've seen all the moves and everybody they've cut ties with. But yeah, it's you just think about how these decisions that are made on draft day are going to affect a franchise for the next maybe up to 10 years. And if you pick the wrong guy, it can derail your franchise for years.
And it has been cool. Like in recent years, we've seen the Eagles have done it, other teams have done it. They show you a little bit more behind the scenes. Now, we don't see the moments that they don't want us to see. And I think that's important to remember. But some of those clips are incredible to watch. Like the Eagles last year trading up to get Cooper DeJean, like the drama behind that. They're trying to get up. The Rams are in there. They make their pick and they think, oh, we lost them. They're going to take them here. And then they don't. And the rumor erupts and they get back on the clock. Like that's exciting stuff. And it's just pure drama. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, you're right, and that's a side of it we never saw. It. Maybe a few weeks later, you might see a little clip of it, but yeah, what they're allowed to show now, what they're able to show, certainly adds a dimension of draft weekend, no question.
It's a lot of fun. 2 weeks before the draft, we've both done Eagles only mock drafts. We want to go through them today. Kind of, if we were Howie Roseman, we didn't have the ability to trade, what we would do in those spots. We want to talk about Jordan Davis a little bit, have a nice long conversation about Jordan Davis entering the fourth year of his career, that fifth year option decision looming with him before May 2nd. So we want to talk about him a little bit. We have a bunch of questions to get to later in the pod, but you and I, we're not professional mock drafters. There are some guys out there who make their living doing mock drafts. We like to dabble here and there. It's a lot of fun. And then people who say like there are some haters of mock drafts, and I get it. Like it's none of them are right, but it's fun. It's fun to play with. It's all entertainment. So let's have some fun with it.
Sounds good. Good way to put it.
Yeah,
This is entertainment purposes only.
exactly. Do you want to go with yours first or my mock first?
Well, I thought we could do that, or we could just go pick by pick if you want.
Oh, I
Whatever.
like that. Okay. Yeah. So we didn't have any trades in our our drafts, which obviously like Howie's not going to stay at every slot he's in, but it
He
kind
might not stay at any of them.
of, yeah, it's possible, but it gives us a sense of what we think he might do, at least position wise, some players who might make sense for the Eagles. So let's start with the first round, 32nd overall pick. We'll start with your pick here. You have Josh Connerly, offensive tackle from Oregon. You've been on Connerly. You like this kid.
Yeah, I do, and I think it makes sense. And he was my pick in my first full draft, 32 picks. I just didn't see a reason to change. Yeah, I know, like it's like, oh, I got to do something different here just to make it different. But I just think it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but here's a guy we talked about him on Tuesday, I think it was, who can play you some guard, most likely until he's ready, until Lane retires, whenever that is, or he becomes your right guard, competes for it at least. And I would think he would win that competition, but certainly that's not a done deal. Um, they're going to take they're going to take at least a couple offensive linemen along the way. I just think it makes a lot of sense at 32 to take someone like Connerly, who gives you be that swing tackle backup, um, hopefully from the jump, compete for right guard, and then when Lane does hang it up, if he's still here, if depending what his contract is, could fill in and become your right tackle.
Now, any hesitation to take an offensive tackle in the first round from Washington State?
It did cross my mind, but yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah, that it. I mean, it's certainly different circumstances, different player, different different coach out there. So yeah, I wouldn't. Would you?
No, but just fun. He's 6'4", 311. So he's not like the biggest guy in the world. We know the Eagles obviously have Jordan Mailata, who's like the largest human ever. Connerly has NFL tackle size, but it's not like overwhelming size. I think he can probably play inside as well. He has like his body type isn't massive, but it's big enough. Um,
And he has the frame to put on, to get to probably eventually get to 320, 325.
yeah, I think so. Only played left tackle at Oregon, so you're projecting a move to the right side, which isn't nothing. I mean, guys kind of deal
Like
with
writing a
it.
term paper with your left hand.
Yeah, who said that?
No comment.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some projection here, but if you think he has the right makeup, if you think he could be a player for you at some point in his career, then like, yeah, you're willing to let it take some time because most likely you won't need him to play an awful lot early on anyway.
I would think so. Yeah, and I think that's part of the process.
Yeah. My first pick, 32nd overall, I have Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. He's a guy who's been really mocked to the Eagles quite a bit, but you understand why. It makes sense from a need perspective. It makes sense from a player makeup perspective. And it makes sense from the perspective we know that the Eagles value this position an awful lot.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because, like, I have no idea where he's going to go. I mean, there's people who think he's a first half of the first round. Um, I've seen some mocks that don't even have him in the first round, so he's a tricky one to figure out. And it is a deep draft at that position, so there's going to be value later. But yeah, I like the player, and I think you can make a pretty good case for him, especially with Milton leaving. So it's a good name, and and he's a guy that, and I think you touched on this in your mock. You could see how he's moving up a little bit to snag him if they feel strongly about him.
Yeah, I think that would be definitely in play. Pretty productive at Ole Miss. I mean, not like eye popping production, but productive enough for a defensive tackle. Really kind of penetrating is the word that gets used with him most. Finds ways to penetrate, but he's not just like a finesse guy inside. I mean, he has some power to him too, strong hands. That's been pretty evident. I think there's a ton of upside with a player like that. And you bring him to this program and you let him go out there and get a lot of one-on-ones with Jalen Carter getting double teams. It's the situation Milton Williams was in and got paid from. it's a way to just replenish that and to make sure that the strength of your team remains on the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, it'd be a great situation for him. I mean, if you're a young interior lineman, like, if you had to make a list of teams you want to go to, I mean, here's a team that's going to be a Super Bowl contender almost every year. You have Clint Hurt, who's a terrific coach for young interior linemen. You have good players already at that position, so um, you're going to be surrounded by talent. I think it's a place where a young D tackle can really come and thrive without being asked to play, you know, 70% of the snaps.
All right, you want to go to the second round?
Yeah.
All right, so second round, 64 overall. You went with an edge player, JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Yeah, and I think he's one of those guys. He's not like that top tier of edge rushers in this draft, but he's firmly in that second tier.
Yeah, and I practiced saying Tui Maloau pretty much all morning. I wanted to make sure I got that right. And obviously, um, you lose Josh Sweat again. You don't want to get too much into this guy's going to replace that guy, but yeah, at some point in the first, I'd say in the first 3 rounds for sure, they're going to take an edge. Um, he really had a terrific postseason for Ohio State. Obviously, they won it all. Um, he had as many sacks during that run during the 4 tournament games as he had during the regular season, or close to it. I think he had. I like seeing guys who kind of show that progression. And he had. Well, I know I put it in here somewhere, but he had. Uh, I don't know. What is wrong with me, Dave? He had 12 and a half sacks this year. He had 6.5 in the 4 postseason wins. So really good production. And you like to see guys that show that improvement and who respond in the biggest games, in the biggest moments. He was one of their best defensive players on the top defense in the country on a team that won a championship. So that's pretty good credentials. And he's one of those guys who is going to be, what is he, 6'5", 265. So he's on the bigger end of that spectrum. He can give you a lot against the run. He's a good run defender. Um, the people that have seen him don't think he's ever going to be like a 15 sack guy. Um, but I think he'll be an effective rusher, good against the run, a versatile player who can play on any downs. He can line up in a couple different spots. And it just seems like a good fit. It seems like a guy they would like.
Yeah, he might not have like the highest end athleticism, but I think people agree he's like twitchy enough. And sometimes you end up putting ceilings on edge rushers and they're able to get past it because if you work hard, if you're developing pass rush moves and you have a good base to work from, it can work out really well for you. I mean, I remember a few years ago, everyone's like, George Karlaftis was a player that got mocked to the Eagles quite a bit, and everyone's like, you don't want him. He's just a power edge rusher. He's a really good player now. So there's something to be said for a high floor too.
Yeah, he was not liked in the mock draft world, Karlaftis.
Well, he was one who was like liked early on that year, and then like kind of fell out of favor because he didn't have like that next level twitchy, just blow you away athletic. He had like a lot of strength, and he was a good athlete, but yeah, I think sometimes there's something to be said for a high floor when you're talking about these players, and there's so many of them are high ceiling, low floor, and that's entertaining and that's fun to think about. But in the Eagles situation, like they need players they can rely on, and that's not saying you take the safe pick every time, but you're going to need contributors too.
Yeah, and I mean that's a position where I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I mean, Nolan's really the only, I guess, sure thing in there. I mean, obviously, Jalix is going to have a role. They added a couple guys. They've got Bryce Huff, but it's in the post Sweat BG age, it's going to be interesting to see how that position shapes up. And I think a guy um, like JT would be a nice fit.
You practiced the name. You're not going to say it?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I said it once. That's enough.
All right. I believe it's Tui Molowau. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I think from and I watched some interviews where the host referred to him, Tui Malola Tui Maloau. I think that last paragraph is the one because it's AU. So you kind of think maybe it's going to be Malo or something like that, but it's yeah, Tui Maloau.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
Tui
good.
Maloau.
I
So
remember when the Eagles drafted Big V. I think I've told this before, but man, I practiced that pronunciation all night because I knew I was on. It was then Philly Sports Talk, and I knew Michael B was gonna make me say that name. So Halapulavati Vaitai, Halapulavati Vaitai, Halapulavati Vaitai. And I nailed the pronunciation, and Michael goes, spell it. I'm like, well, I haven't gotten there yet.
I remember when we had our quick slant spelling bee with me and Gunner, and I knew Sean Kane, who was the producer back then, was going to. I knew I was going to get Big V, and I mean it's not the most difficult.
It's kind of phonetic.
Yeah, it is, but yeah, I knew I was going to get him, and I did. And Gunner, Gunner got like Jordan Hicks, like, but but yeah, those names are fun though. Yeah, no doubt.
They are fun. My favorite thing about Big V is his brother's names. Do you know what his brother's names are?
Remind me.
Will and Kevin. But he was like the firstborn, so he had the traditional name.
I'll never forget at media day in where were we in that hockey rink
Yeah, in
in
St. Paul.
in St. Paul, the Minnesota, what's their hockey team, the Wild,
The Wild, yeah.
and we hadn't seen Big V in months. I think we had talked to him like when JP got hurt, and then we never saw him again for like 2 months, and everybody had to be there. So like five or six of us cornered him, and like he was way off. He didn't want to be found, and we found him, and we're asking him about playing for JP and what it's been like. And Les Bowen starts the interview by going, "Well, Big V, we haven't seen you around in a while," and Big V says, "I had meetings," and Les goes, "You had meetings constantly for the last 2 months."
It's good.
But anyway, Big V. Yeah.
My second round pick, 64th overall, Marcus Mbao from Purdue, offensive lineman, played right guard and right tackle in college. Most people kind of see him as a right guard in the NFL, but I wouldn't limit him just yet. I think there's a chance he could play tackle in the league. Uh, Eagles had him to their building for a visit, which I have that visit tracker. It's something to keep an eye on. I mean, they're bringing these guys in for visits for a reason. It doesn't mean they're going to draft all of them, but you kind of look. Even last year, they brought in a lot of those players they drafted for top 30 visits or 30 visits. Not really top 30 visits. They're 30 visits. They get 30 of them, and they use them judiciously. So keep an eye on those. And I think when you see those names pop up in mock drafts, there's a reason why.
Yeah, 6'4", 300.
Yeah, not the biggest guy in the world. We're talking about size. He's, a little smaller than Connerly. And I think that's the reason a lot of people see him as a guard in the NFL. But he has good feet, moves pretty well. I think there's a lot to like about him. And look, if you end up with a guy who ends up as your starting right guard and can play tackle in a pinch, I think you'd be okay with that.
It's a good name. I mean, it's a short name. We went from the longest name in the draft to the shortest name in the draft. But
I guess so.
yeah,
How you want to go to the third round?
yeah,
Okay, so your third round pick was actually my fourth round pick. So I'll let you talk about Gunnar Helm a little bit.
yeah. And I think we're still kind of operating under the. I mean, whether Dallas Goddard's here or not, if they figure something out, he's still going to be an older tight end. Probably on some sort of 1-year deal. Gunnar Helm's a tight end from Texas. And obviously, it's an important position. You look at the lineage from Chad Lewis to Brent Selleck to Ertz to Dallas, and it's been an important position here for a long, long time. But he's an interesting guy because he didn't do a whole lot early in his career at Texas. He just had 19 catches his first 3 seasons, but this past year, 60 catches, 786 yards, 7 touchdowns, um, top five in the BCS in all those categories. 6'5", 240. Um, he's not an elite blocker, but the effort's there, and I just think if we think they're going to go with Grant Calcaterra, Harrison Bryant, Kylan Granson, I just think you have to be better than that. And I think the time to get a tight ends in the middle rounds. And you obviously agree with me. Buddy used to say when a team drafted a guy that he liked, but they got him like before the Eagles could get him, Buddy would say, "We liked him, not as much as they did." That's how I feel like, so I'm taking him in the third, you're taking him in the fourth. But I really liked the production this past year. And again, I like the growth. This is a guy who kept working on his game. He could have transferred, he could have given up, he could have, a lot of things he could have done because he just 19 catches in 3 years, but he just kept at it, stayed in Austin, and really had a big payoff this past year.
Yeah, I mean, he was behind Jatavian Sanders, who was a really good starter, mid-round pick last year. So at least there was a reason. It wasn't like he was playing a ton and
Right.
wasn't productive. He was behind somebody and finally got his chance this year. Uh, Big body, which I like. If you're trying to find a dual threat tight end, I think he showed the pass catching ability, and he's not a refined blocker, but most tight ends coming out of college just aren't. You're looking
Right.
for can they do it if instructed right? Do they have enough effort in that area? And I think he does. Didn't have a great combine, so there were some athletic freaks at tight end. He's not one of them based on his combine performance, but I don't know. I think that stuff matters, but if I'm taking him in the fourth round, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I like the production, and as far as the blocking, he's not a bad blocker, and I mean the effort was there, and um, you're totally right. I mean, most guys come out of college. I mean, what makes you money as a tight end is catches, is production, and blocking's nice, but teams want, a lot of these tight ends that are coming out now, they're glorified wide receivers. So this is a guy who's got some good size, and I'm sure the Eagles wouldn't draft him if they didn't think he could develop into at least a functional blocker, which I think, at that size, and he's a strong kid, I think that can happen. You look at the growth Dallas Goddard showed. I mean, he wasn't even considered he wasn't really asked to do it in college. So became one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. So you can do it. And I would think that would be part of the projection here.
So that was your third round pick. He was my fourth round. So my third round pick, I had Josiah Stewart, edge rusher from Michigan. I've talked about him on this podcast before. He's been one of my favorite players to watch in this pre-draft process. Not the biggest guy in the world, and I think that's why he might be available as late as the third round.
Six
Maybe
one,
even,
right?
yeah, he's 6'1", about 250, but certainly doesn't play that small. I mean, he's tough at the point of attack. He really does remind me of Nolan Smith. And I don't know if that comp is out there from anyone else, but having seen Nolan this past year, I mean, he does a lot of the same things. He has great bend around the edge. He has good explosion. He has that ability to, which is such a rare thing, the ability to turn the corner and not lose speed, actually accelerate through it. Uh, but like he plays tough. He can set the edge. He can. I found one clip of him taking on a pulling guard. Like he can do all that stuff. So I think some teams are going to just be turned off by his size, and they're going to say that's not for us. But I don't know. The Eagles have a pretty good example of that body type working in the NFL.
He's got great ankle flexion.
Going scout lingo on me. You just wanted to get that in.
Yeah, but he does. I mean,
He actually does. Yeah.
he does have some interesting traits. So yeah.
So ankle flexion joined our lexicon in Philly when Joe Douglas was raving about Derek Barnett in 2017.
Is that what it dates back to?
Yeah, I mean that was Joe is like a treasure trove of these scouting terms. I remember him talking about Tano Passanio, the big defensive lineman. He called him body beautiful, which is like a term for like these kind of chiseled guys who they like, as Nick Sirianni would say, the first guys off the bus.
We should make like a compendium of those phrases.
Once I find out what a compendium is, I am all about it.
I don't know, compendium, just like a list. I don't know.
Oh, a list. You couldn't have said list?
Well, compendium's more like, I guess, more comprehensive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, than a list. But
No, I think all we need is a list.
to put into terms that you would understand, a list.
Thank you. Yeah, compendium. I need a dictionary just to get through this podcast now.
You need a compendium just to get through what you knew what a compendium was.
No.
A collection of concise but detailed information about a particular subject.
Okay. I guess that
A
fits.
list.
A list. Yeah. It says, i.e., a list.
All right.
Yeah. So Josiah Stewart, one of my favorite players in this draft. I don't know if he'll be there in the third round. He might sneak into a higher range in that third round. There's a good chance he's gone by the time the Eagles are on the clock at 96, but you also never know. I mean, this is, you and I have a tight end in 2 different rounds, and either could happen. Like once you get past, and it is funny. It's like by the time we get to the draft, we mentioned on the last, but there's so many players who were considered first round picks by someone, namely their agent, but there's someone considers them a first round pick.
Yeah, you have to really watch out for those agent plants.
They do their job, man.
They do.
They get some people talking about their clients.
Yeah, no question.
And then it is funny because then you end up with like, oh man, the Eagles got a steal. It's like, but did they? Because every team passed on that player to get them there.
Yeah, pretty much everyone drafted in the first 2 rounds will have been projected as a first rounder by someone.
Most likely.
Yeah.
There'll be some surprises, but
yeah.
I always had this theory a few years ago. I mean, before Mike Mayock became the Raiders GM, which he no longer is, but before he became the Raiders GM, he was the biggest voice in this draft world in the media. And then I remember like his drafts went against consensus so much that people said they were bad drafts. And I mean, I guess time kind of proved they weren't great drafts, but I always had this theory that they only went against consensus because he was no longer a part of creating that consensus.
Yeah.
If he had been in media talking about these players he loved, that would have changed the consensus. He was that loud of a voice in that world.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's probably true.
And I also found it really crazy that he became a GM and every player in the league who had been drafted in the previous like 10 years knew exactly what he thought about them coming out of college. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's just a weird like set of circumstances to be a general manager in the league.
Yeah. Well, if Howie ever stepped down from his job, he'd be on TV hosting draft shows. Like
He'd be really good at it.
he'd be incredible at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Problem is he's too good at his job to do it, but it'd be fascinating.
At some point he might feel like, he doesn't want to spend. I mean, he told us a story about like coming back from his kid's game at 10 o'clock and sitting down and watching film. And his wife's like, "What are you doing? There's nothing to watch right now." And maybe at some point he'll, I don't think he's anywhere close to it, but I mean, it's an incredibly demanding job, time consuming.
Yeah, it's true. All right, let's get to the 4th round. I had Gunnar Helm, so we don't have to go through that again. Riley Mills, you have defensive tackle from Notre Dame.
6'5", 295. I mean, we both agree he's going to take an interior lineman at some point. And certainly could be a lot earlier than the 4th round at 134. He's a guy who is coming off an injury. He hurt his right knee in a game against Indiana, I think, in December, late in the season, missed the rest of the season. He's one of those guys who I think fits what the Eagles like because he can play the run. He can line up outside. Um, Occasionally, he's got some pass rush ability, uh, and can come in and be part of a rotation from the get go. He's an impressive kid, and um, they haven't had great success with Notre Dame guys. Going back to your theory about Victor Biamiri and Trevor Laws back to back years in the second round, I think. But I like him, and I think he'd be a good fit here.
My favorite Trevor Laws moment was when he guaranteed a win to you. Who are they playing? Seahawks?
I think it was the Seahawks.
And they never beat the Seahawks. And he Trevor Laws guaranteed a win.
Yeah.
Trevor Laws was playing like how many snaps? I mean, he wasn't playing very much.
I don't even know why I was talking to him. He's probably the only guy in the locker room. He's guaranteed to win. Yeah,
Yeah. Did they win?
they did not.
Yeah. It's tough.
And the entire Seattle media was at his locker as soon as the
Yeah.
game ended.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Want to move on?
Yeah.
So we are now still in the fifth round because the Eagles or we're going to the fifth round. You have Nick Nash, wide receiver from San Jose State at 161. Now the Eagles draft here 161, 164, 165, 168. No chance in heck they stay at all four of those spots in the fifth round. But right now they have 4 fifth-round picks.
If they make all 4 of those picks, do you think Howie will talk to us after each one? Run down to the
He'll take off
podium, run
5.
back up to his office?
Yeah.
How many of those 4 do you think they'll pick at?
1.
I'm gonna say 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep one of those. But as long as they have the picks, we'll
I really like 164. I think that's the
I think 165 is a lot more likely. Nick Nash is a super productive guy from San Jose State. Um, and he actually got there as a quarterback, and he played some quarterback early in his career through 10 touchdown passes early on. And his production this past year was 104 catches, almost 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. He was second in the BCS in all those categories to that dude at Bowling Green, um, who caught like 300 passes. But yeah, you have to look at like Jahan Dotson signed for 1 more year, and I know they want him to be the third receiver, and that's fine. And maybe he will be, and he showed some encouraging signs late in the year. But they just don't have much else at the position. And again, it's not a position you're going to spend a lot of assets on just because AJ and Devontae are going to get the lion's share of the balls. But um, yeah, I think helping the depth at that position and maybe finding your number 3 receiver in the late rounds, your number 3 receiver post Jahan Dotson, assuming he's not here in 26. I think there's some value in that. And again, a player that just kept getting better and better, and had a big time last year. Now he's not fast, he's not big, he's just like he's a guy that really fights for the ball, and he's a competitor. He's going to get catches just by persistence and determination more than just outrunning anybody or out jumping anybody. That's why he's not going to go to the last couple rounds. But really an interesting player, and you really like the production.
I'll just jump in here with the receiver I have in the fifth round. I had him in 168 because it doesn't really matter. I had Isaac Tesla
No,
from
we have to go in order.
from Arkansas. To me, like this was a dart throw area. It wasn't super productive, but I'm not really looking for production here. Like when you get in the fifth round, he's 6'4", 214, really good athlete. Um, so like I'm happy taking traits this late in the draft. Kind of played big slot for them in Arkansas, so we got to see him outside a little bit more. But I don't know, big, tough, physical, fast, strong. Like has all the tools, just has to put it together. I don't know if he will, but I like taking those kinds of picks in day 3.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Would he be their first receiver from Arkansas since Fred Barnett?
I guess.
Just wondering. All
Okay.
right.
We can jump back now to your next fifth round pick. You have Dylan Fairchild from Georgia.
Yeah, and they're going to take an extra late round interior offensive lineman. They always do. Um, I I think I wrote at this point at 164 how he's going best available Georgia dude, and he's a Georgia dude. So he did have a top 30 visit or a 30 visit, and with the Eagles, so that puts him on the radar. He's got. I just think any of these guys, you get Stoutland with him, they're going to have a chance to be a player. I really think the Eagles want to upgrade that depth on the O line, inside, especially. So he's, like you said, throwing darts, but Georgia guy. He's big. He's got some tools. He can play guard, and yeah, you bring him in, throw him in the mix.
I had an offensive lineman in day three too, and this was kind of a pick just for me. Uh, Willie Lampkin from from North Carolina. I had him at 164. Uh, you mentioned size. He doesn't have that. He's 5'10", in the 270s, which is like unheard of to be an offensive lineman in the NFL, but he's good. He's just really good. He was good in college. He was good at the Senior Bowl. Got snubbed from the combine probably just because of his size. But you watch him and you're like, okay, this guy has something. Obviously, has to play inside in the NFL, guard, maybe center. You can probably get away with that size better as center. But I don't know, man. He's fun. Fifth round's probably too early, but sometimes you got to have a pick for yourself in there.
Yeah, and you got a little video of him from the combat from Senior Bowl
From
practice.
Senior Bowl, throws a dude to the ground and AI steps over him.
Yeah, so check out that video. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. Is there a guy in the league built like that?
No,
Has there ever been a guy in the league built like that?
probably not in many years.
Yeah, it's a fun pick, and I appreciate you making a pick for yourself.
Yeah, we both have a safety going late in this draft. I went with Caleb Ransaw from Tulane, who's not really a safety. I have him listed as a defensive back. He kind of played nickel at Tulane after starting his career at Troy. You have Jalen Reed from Penn State.
Yeah, Jalen Reed, and obviously they're going to take a safety somewhere. Um,
Both late. I mean, we both took safeties late. I think there's a very good chance they take one way earlier than this.
yeah, I would agree with that. It's just the way my board fell. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's just he can't really cover. He's a box safety. He's a physical guy. He did have a bunch of interceptions. Really, they faced some really bad quarterbacks. Really productive guy though. A lot of tackles for loss. He had a few sacks. But he's really physical and he loves to play the run. I think he's a guy who could help out on special teams from the jump. I mean, he should be a really good special teamer. And then you try to work with him on polishing his game. Um, he's a long shot, but I guess when you get to the fifth round, everybody is. But there's just something to like about him. I really like his physicality and size and his ability against the run. Certainly, at worst, maybe help out in situationally in some sub packages.
Yeah. Ransaw to me, like again, kind of like Tesla, just going traits here. He's a shade under 6 foot, 200 pounds, ran a 4.33. Mostly, like I said, played nickel in his 1 year at Tulane, but went to the Senior Bowl, got a chance to play some safety there. And we know the Eagles value that part of the process, like watching guys play different spots when they go to Mobile. So he got a chance to do that. Uh, I don't know. I think a player like that would fit in the fifth round. Then we each have one more fifth round pick. You went with Colin Oliver from Oklahoma State, and I went with who was my last? Kobe King from Penn State.
Yeah, Oliver's he's 6'2", 240, played a lot of edge at Oklahoma State. He's not going to do that in the NFL at that size. But he's got some linebacker in him, some off-ball linebacker in him, and um, got hurt week 2. So he missed almost the entire season, got hurt against Arkansas. But I think he's got enough traits, and I mean, he was off to a great start. I know it was only 2 games, but he's just a guy who's productive, and if he can learn how to be an off-ball linebacker, he played some. some linebacker. I mean, he's got some ability, cover a little bit, but again, late round pick, interesting guy, chance to get into this program, and he would have a terrific coach and see where it goes.
Kobe King, downhill linebacker, fun play style, really aggressive. The coverage aspect of it would need some growth, but talking fifth round linebacker, you never know. And they drafted a fifth round linebacker last year. I think they might do it again.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I
All right,
mean,
that was fun.
if they have 4 picks, they're going to take a lot in the 5th round.
Yeah, which they probably won't.
Right. But it'll all be in the compendium.
All right, let's take a break. We'll talk Jordan Davis and answer some questions on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro. That took a long time going through those mocks, longer than I expected. But I want to talk about Jordan Davis because the Eagles have a decision to make by May 2nd as to whether or not they're going to pick up the 5th-year option on his rookie deal, which is that 5th-year options for 2026. He's already under contract for 2025. Let's just start with the question. Do you think they're going to pick up this option?
Well, I still think there's a chance that they will do a long-term deal or a multi-year deal, and avoid the issue entirely. I think there's a chance, but I think they will. I think it's more likely than not that they will. Um, it, it's a tricky question with him. It really is. I think his value is tricky to determine. The number is not huge enough that I think they can. It's a 1 year guaranteed amount. What is it, like 12.9 million?
Yeah,
Um,
it's just a shade under 13 million for him. It varies
right.
on uh, different factors, but for him it'll be 13 mil
Yeah, it varies on Pro Bowls and yeah, but
playtime.
and play time. Um, I think he's good enough. I mean, that's not a huge number for a player like him, and um, I think he's not what you would want when you draft that high. He's not what you want where they picked him, but I think he's a good enough player to be worth that. And I think they're a better team with him. It's look, when you're cap strapped, it's a lot of money, and it's all in 1 year. I mean, you don't spread it out. There's no voidable years in a 5th-year option. So it's a tricky thing, and it's a tough call. But I think it's more likely that they will than they won't. Um, I don't think it hurts that he finished strong this past year. I mean, he's had an up and down career. He hasn't been, um, he's been inconsistent. There's times he disappeared, but he's also playing a position where he's not going to jump off the stat sheets. He's not going to. But he started getting some pressure, I thought, from the inside. Um, had a big sack in the postseason.
Two.
Yeah, he did. He had two.
And the
He
championship game and the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and those are two pretty important games. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think it's more likely than not that they will.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think they're going to pick it up because the number isn't super prohibitive. It's a lot, and it's probably more than like if you does he deserve it? Is he worth that? I don't know, but I looked up there are 27 defensive tackles making over 13 million per season.
But it's the nature of the 1 year. It's like 13 million a year if you have voidable years and you spread everything out. I mean, it's different when it's a 1 year, hit, um, as far as the cap goes. But um, I mean, is he one of the top 30 interior linemen in the league? I think he probably is.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a unique lineman.
Yeah.
And look, I think we get spoiled a little bit with Jalen Carter coming in the league and just being so good right away. Defensive tackle is a position that, like, historically can take some time. Like we've seen that across the league for years. Especially with a guy like Jordan Davis who is kind of learning how to be a pass rusher and learning how to be disruptive. It's not anywhere near a finished product right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard to believe he's going into year 4. I mean, it just seems like he just got here, but he's improved. I think that's something you look at when you look at something like this. He's gotten better. The best football he ever played was down the stretch last year and in the postseason. So that gives me a comfort level. I mean, he's a guy that really wants to do well, and um, he's really driven. I think he really likes it here. He's got all his boys around. Um, I think it makes sense. I don't really see a downside to it other than it's 13 million in 1 year. Um, but I think he's worth it.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles will be in a hurry to not have him on the team. And it's not just us talking about the playoff production and him improving and getting better. Howie Roseman talked about it at the owners' meetings last week. I mean, that was when he was asked about Jordan Davis, he brought up how much better he played in the postseason, about his growth and like continued growth from Jordan Davis. So I think the Eagles are still bullish on him.
Yeah, yeah. Everything points to that. So I'd be surprised if he's not here beyond 25.
Mhm. And I guess the Eagles technically have a decision to make on Jahan Dotson. Uh, he actually qualifies for the playtime amount, which for him would be, what is it here? 16, like 16.8 million. I think it's pretty clear they're not going to pick up that.
That's most likely. Yeah.
All right. That's the Jordan Davis conversation. You have a story coming out this weekend. That's been a lot of fun. I've kind of not worked with you on it, but I've heard bits and pieces. I guess I did work on it with you a little bit. I've given my opinion, whether you wanted it or not. Top 10
Well,
defensive plays in Eagles history.
yeah, and the idea for the story, like a lot of ideas for stories that we write, came from the podcast. Like the podcast is kind of like a what's the word? A petri dish for do you know what a petri dish is?
No, can you explain it to me?
Did you ever take any science classes at Cherokee?
I did. Yeah.
A petri dish is like where you grow like
I know what a petri dish is. Yes.
okay, all right. But anyway, we come up with ideas for stories just with the back and forth on the podcast. And when BG retired, I think it was that day that he retired, that he announced his retirement. We did a pod, and we were talking obviously about the strip sack on Brady. And you said, where would you put that if you were ranking the best defensive plays? I think you said the best plays in Eagles history. And I said, well, in the best defensive plays in Eagles history, it would have to be, I think I said in the top 2 or 3. And that's how the idea of the story kind of started. So I went back, and now I have a top 10. So it's running over the next couple days. And the tricky thing is balancing, like most of the plays were in critical moments in critical postseason games, but there's also some plays that are just so remarkable just in the actual play itself that just standing alone, it wasn't anything that led to a championship or even some of them were on losing teams. Um, but the play was just so incredible that it deserves to be in there. So there's a little of both from really from a lot of eras of Eagles football, um, 2 from this year because I dropped the one. Well, I can say what the one I dropped was Julio, who just retired. Good luck to you, Julio Jones, former Eagle. Jalen Mills on Julio in the NFC Championship game in 17. Um, and I took that one out just because if you just watch the play, like Julio slips, and like Jalen Mills didn't really do anything. Like he just kind of stood there. Matt Ryan kind of overthrew it. Jalen Mills fell down. Um, Julio Jones fell down. Jalen might have pushed him a little bit, but not enough to get a penalty. Uh, So I took that one out. Obviously, it came at an incredibly pivotal time, and Jalen Mills didn't do anything to mess it up. He was in the right spot. His coverage was fine. But I think the reason that play didn't work was because Matt Ryan threw it too high and Julio Jones just kind of couldn't quite get it. But anyway, it was fun to do, and I'm sure people disagree with some of the ones that didn't make the cut, and I get it. There's some
Are you going to
amazing.
do an honorable mention
No,
list? Okay.
no, it'd be too much work. It's already too long, so we split it up into two parts. Um, but it was a lot of fun researching the plays, and I can reveal, like, one of the plays happened in the mid '90s, and I have that newspapers.com, which is an incredible resource. You can find any article about anything in the history of the world. Phil Sheridan, who was at the Inquirer at that time, wrote a great lead. He wrote a great lead on what happened, and we'll talk about that later. But um, I texted him the lead, and I said, "Do you know what story this lead goes with?" And he couldn't remember. So that was fun. But it was, um, I don't want to give it away, but um, and I was like, you wrote that 30 years ago. How are you supposed to remember that? But it was fun to do, and yeah. So that'll run Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
You did mention Julio. We didn't mention him. He retired. Obviously wasn't in his prime anymore when he got to Philly, but it was cool to have Julio in the building for a year.
Yeah, another Hall of Famer that finished his career here, like Art Monk and James Lofton and Richard Dent. There's a lot of them. It was fun. He's a good dude. Um, yeah, it was wild. Just you walk in the locker room, there's freaking Julio Jones. What are you doing here?
Definitely one of those people that, like, he walks in and everyone's eyes kind of gravitate toward him.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Devontae especially really liked having him around. Talked to him all the
AJ,
time.
God, I mean, he's AJ's like idol.
Yeah, I mean they both did. Yeah, and yeah, wish him well. What a career, an amazing career. He'll be a Hall of Famer. I think it's tough for wide receivers, but it won't be tough for him.
No, he's
Um,
the reason AJ wears 11.
is that right?
And I actually was chatting with Julio one day, which is a funny sentence to say, about his wearing 11, because he was kind of like, he was like a big part of the start of the trend where receivers went to the teens and like 11 became a popular number. And he said, that's just a number they gave me when he got to Atlanta. I don't know how true that is, but it's funny that it's just like, it's just kind of happened.
And none of them wear numbers in the '80s anymore.
Yeah, I know. And that bothers me as a kid who grew up in the 90s when all the best receivers wore 80 numbers.
And I grew up in the '80s, and they all wear numbers in the '90s now. Um, who's the best receiver? Didn't you do that last year? Like the best receiver who had a number in the '80s? Like none of the top 20.
Oh yeah, it's really kind of it's gone.
Yeah. Johnny Wilson, maybe.
Probably not. All right, let's get to some questions. We're running out of time here. Eagle Eyed NBC Uni, that's NBCUNI.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have that QR code on the screen. You can scan it and send us a question that way. All right, first one here today is from John. Guys, love the pod. Rube, I've been following you since your Burlington County Times days, having grown up in Cinnamonston.
Appreciate
I just can't stop thinking about how well Jalen Hurts has evolved as QB1. He reminds me of Hall of Famer Steve Young. Accurate passer, ability to read defenses, scramble to keep pass plays alive, escaping the pass rush, and running for first downs. Because Hurts isn't a pure pocket passer, the pundits say he's not elite, but the results don't lie. Jalen is elite. My question is, if he continues to put up numbers, passing yards, touchdowns, playoff wins, and championships, do you feel he will eventually make both the Eagles and Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, he's already done enough to make the Eagles Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's in that.
I mean, he's in. Yeah, they put him in now. But yeah, I think I wrote about this Super Bowl week or the week before we went down to New Orleans. He's on track. I mean, there's not a lot of quarterbacks who've done what he's done before their 27th birthday. Get to 2 Super Bowls, win 1. Just the number of wins he has. Yeah, and people are always looking for ways to diminish his accomplishments, and but I mean, gosh, he's played in 2 Super Bowls and he's completed 70% of his passes in both of them. There's not a lot of quarterbacks who've done that. I think there's 5, And Steve Young's one of them. I think, no, Montana's one. Steve Young just did it in 94, I think. But yeah, he's on track for that. If he can stay healthy, and he's going to have good players around him, and as long as Howie's replenishing the roster, which there's no reason to think he won't. If he plays till he's 31, 32, I don't know. I don't know how long he wants to play, but he's going to get to another Super Bowl. He could very well win another one. And he's going to keep getting to the playoffs. So, I mean, gosh, he's already got what? 6 playoff wins, right? 4 this year and 2 in 22. Yeah, he's on track. If his next 5 years are as good as these last 5 years, he's a Hall of Famer.
It might take one more Super Bowl, which is a big ask.
It might. I think getting to a third might be enough.
So I think there's some similarities to Eli Manning, right? Like I don't think
Eli Manning was a 500 quarterback in his career. Jalen's like a 780 quarterback.
Yeah, but he won 2 Super Bowls.
He did.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, but like I think there's some similarity because like I don't think Eli was ever considered like one of the best quarterbacks in the league in like single years. And like Jalen, he isn't. Whether or not you think he is or you think he isn't, like most people who are in the positions, like the pundits and talking heads, say that he's not in that top group. You can disagree with that, but that's kind of the consensus on him, right?
Well, I guess it depends how you define it. I mean, he was in the MVP running 2 years in a row with a month left in the season. So, and the year he won the Super Bowl is not one of those years. And Eli had like 2 great moments, like 2 great days in his entire career, and they were 2 Super Bowls. And if Asante had timed his jump better, which still drives him crazy, but I wouldn't vote for Eli. I just don't think he was. I think he's finished 1 game over 500 in his career. And he never won a playoff game other than those 2 playoff runs that the Giants had when they won it as wild card teams. He played like 17 years and only won a playoff game 2 different years.
But now you have to hope you get, like, if you're going to, if Eagles fans are going to root for Jalen, and Jalen might blow it away. Like, we don't know what the rest of his career is going to hold, but you kind of want Eli to get in, because if Eli gets in, then you go, well, this guy.
I don't think Eli getting in has any bearing on. I think by the time Jalen's career is over, I think it'll be clear that he's a Hall of Famer. I just do.
We don't know, but
yeah,
he's on the trajectory.
He is.
Yeah. Let's take one more. We didn't have a lot of time for questions. We apologize for that today. From Keenan, big fan of the pod. What would you say is the ceiling and floor of the 6 replacement starters as they stand today with free agency / injury? It seems like people are very pessimistic, but a lot of these guys were high draft picks and or high RAS athletes, so I don't understand why, and I would love your opinion. So he breaks it down by position. I'll just go in his order here. CB2, Keely Ringo.
I'm high on Keely. I think he's going to be pretty good.
I do too. I think there's a lot to like with Keely, and we've seen him in that role. Like some of these guys we haven't really seen in the role. We've at least like seen Keely play outside cornerback in the NFL, and we've seen him do some good things, some not so great things too, but there's something to build on.
20-year-old. Yeah.
Next one is linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Yeah, I just haven't seen it, and I think he has a chance to be a player. It's just so hard when you haven't seen a guy. I think when we have seen him at camp and very, very short stretches, mainly in mop-up time, he's pretty active, and he's got terrific instincts. So I think he's got a chance to be a player, but to say that he will be, I just don't know that.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's somewhat comforting that Vic Fangio is preparing to play him in the playoffs before Oren Burks just played really, really well, and he thought, well, I'm not going to take him off the field. The fact that Vic was at least ready to play him tells you that, okay, he saw something in him, and I trust Vic's evaluation.
Yeah. Oren Burks, by the way, played a big role in that Cooper DeJean pick six. I watched that play like 100 times yesterday.
Why were you
I
watching that play?
I'm not giving that away. I don't want to give away any secrets. Obviously, that's one of the top 10 defensive plays in Eagles history. But I mean, he cut off Mahomes' rushing lane, and it was 3rd and 16, so he wasn't going to get to the sticks. But he was going that way, and he also kind of covered up the running back who was a little open in the flat. It was I forget the running back, but um, yeah, he just darted across the field. Um, really got there really quick and cut off a lot of things that Mahomes, a lot of his options, and forced him to throw across his body to the middle of the field. Um, he played great in the postseason.
He did. Because of that, Trotter didn't see time, but he might this year.
Yeah,
Safety, Sidney Brown.
we saw some good and some bad from Sydney. I'm I'm less convinced about him than Keeley, um, just because I think there's some real holes in his game. But again, he's a guy that is going to have the opportunity to fix them. And he was a very young player when he saw him. Obviously, he didn't play much this past year, but he was a rookie, and um, he was a young kid, and he was playing a bigger role than maybe he was ready for. But he made some big hits. He had some big plays. Had the long interception return. Um, he just seems to, there's those plays he just whiffs on that really can hurt a defense, can hurt a team. Where he's going for the kill all the time. And if you don't get it, sometimes it's just, what, make the tackle, let the guy have his 4 yards, and live to see another down. And he's got to learn that. So if he can, he's got some tools, no question about it.
Yeah, and I think I can trust the evaluation from Keely Ringo in 23 more than Sidney Brown in 23 because Keely's playing outside corner. Certain things change, but I think that's an easier evaluation than Sidney Brown playing nickel corner in a defense that was really disjointed.
Yeah. But he's got a shot.
Defensive tackle, Heedless Moro, Ojima, and Jordan Davis. Let's limit it to Ojima.
Yeah. I don't know how big a role, um, ideally he would play, but I think I've seen enough from him I mean, he's going to be in the rotation. He's going to be part of what they're doing. So I don't really consider him. I mean, just the nature of the position. They rotate guys, and he played a lot of snaps last year. So I don't know how big his role can get, but I mean, he's already shown me enough that he's going to be part of the rotation.
Yeah, I think they're going to draft a defensive tackle high who might take that Milton Williams spot, but I think they're really high on Ojima. Everyone talks about him. I mean, he's one of those guys where his teammates. I was listening to the New Heights pod with Brandon Graham, and he's the first guy he brought up. Now that was because he took Fletch's locker, I think, but he's seems pretty bullish on him.
Yeah, and no reason not to be.
Yeah. Edge rusher, he lists Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. I think we know what Nolan is. How about Jalix?
Yeah, I thought by a guy who wasn't even playing when the year started, and by the end of the season, I mean, he was playing really well, and um, he made a difference in the postseason. I mean, he was a factor, and um, I'm kind of pretty high on him. I think he might be pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. He was disruptive. The proof is in the pudding. Like we've seen it. Some of these guys we haven't seen it. We've seen it from him in the Super Bowl. Like he was disruptive in the Super Bowl. So he had the half sack that he shared with Sweat, but I mean I think he brings him down if Sweat's not there.
Yeah, I thought it should have been his sack. Honestly, nothing against Sweaty. Um, the amount that he improved from the start of the season to the end of the season is astonishing.
Mhm.
And that's only going to continue because he's still green, no pun intended. Um, yeah, I think they might have found something there.
Yeah, and then right guard Tyler Steen / Kenyon Green. I don't think any of us know what to expect from Kenyon Green. At least Steen, we've seen it a little bit.
Yeah, and I still think they can do better. Now maybe he'll come in and be more consistent. Um, I think he's just a guy from what I've seen. You can win games with him at right guard, but I think they can do better. But again, he also deserves the chance to show that he can play better than he did when he had to play. And yeah, Kenyon Green, I can't imagine him making that jump as bad as he was the 2 years that he played down there. But we'll see. We'll see. And if I mean, I'm still guessing that they're starting right guard on opening day in September is going to be someone other than Tyler Steen or Kenyon Green.
Wow. I think Steen, you mentioned the word consistency with him. I think that's key. He's got to be more consistent. But I also think they can be a really good line with him in there.
Well, the other four guys are pretty good, and that helps him. I mean, he just can't be like. I mean, he's going to be the weak link. He just can't be bad.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
there's
Beckton
times,
was the weak link in 2024, but not by a lot.
right, right, and there's times where I mean, there's plays that Tyler Steen. I mean, there's plays he looks really good, and but there's some plays like there's a handful of plays each game where you're like, all right, that's not good. He's got to be better.
All right. If you have a question for us, eagle-eyed NBCUni.com. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Pod, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, any final words?
I have no final words this time.
All right, that's it then. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.